Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome to 10 Seconds to Air. I'm Alita Guillen. If the COVID virus was able to spread to every corner of the world, then why couldn't goodness? That is the message from my guest today. You may know her as the wife of the late film critic Roger Ebert, but Chaz Ebert is a powerhouse businesswoman, lawyer, producer, and now author. She has a message that wakes her up every morning, and she is committed to doing whatever it takes to make it go viral. Chaz joins me now in person and explains why she wrote her new book, It's Time to Give a FECK, that is F-E-C-K, elevating humanity through forgiveness, empathy, compassion, and kindness. Thank you so much for being here in person and making time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here with you. And is it okay to say, and especially since you were a former Chicagoan?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So I was a reporter when you and Roger were kind of around doing all the media rounds. And I spent time talking to him. And I have to say, we talked about this before we hit the record button, but I didn't get a chance to really speak with you that often.
So here we are.
So here we are. It's funny how life works. You are now speaking quite a bit. You're out there. You have this journey that you are now sharing with all of us, and you are finding yourself in front of the camera and in front of the microphone more often. What goes through your mind 10 seconds to air?
I'm just drawing in the goodness in the universe. That's what I do to center myself before I get out to speak. I actually came from a background where I spoke all the time in public. And from the time I was a little kid in grammar school, I was the person in my class who also always had to give the speeches before the assembly or before classes, or people, go to other schools. And so I thought that it was normal. I thought that's what everybody did. And it wasn't until I was an adult and I was speaking to someone and I would read all these things about public speaking. Fear of public speaking is one of the biggest fears, that I was asking someone. I said, isn't that kind of silly? No, everybody speaks all the time. And they said, no, I'd rather stick a fork in my eye than speak publicly. And I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. During the pandemic, I have to tell you, I developed a fear of public speaking. So after the pandemic was over and this book was published and I have to get out to talk about it, I find that my level of anxiety increased, but the message, the thing that I love about the message is it takes you out of yourself and you're thinking about other people and thinking about something universally to just help things to be better. So 10 seconds before air, I'm thinking about pulling in the goodness from the universe.
Well, you certainly pulled in goodness in the book.
Thank you.
What was that journey like? How did you get started with this book?
So this book is, I wish I had a better answer for how this book came to be, but I don't, because it's not the book that I set out to write. I've written almost my entire life. I cannot not write. So I have lots of journals and short stories and things I've written. And also as a lawyer, as a trial attorney, I used to do legal writing for briefs and such. But this book, I guess you could say it started with the E. FECK is an acronym for forgiveness, empathy, compassion, and kindness. And I say that the E in FECK really stands for empathy, or Ebert, because it was my late husband, Roger, who said that movies are a machine that generates empathy, that allows you to put yourself in the shoes of another person, of someone different from you, someone of a different age or race, gender, socioeconomic status, or religion, nationality, and help sort of to teach you to respect those differences. And why this book? I don't know. I was just drawn to write it.
So the E you started out with, because
yes.
the E you started out with, but it sounds like that E has been in your life for a long time.
A long time, yes. The empathy part with, and like I said, Roger, it was the biggest, the thing that I think he's quoted for, he passed away 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, whenever I see his name come up in anywhere on the internet, people are usually quoting his statement about empathy.
Yeah.
And that's not why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because when we started talking about empathy, I actually endowed some programs across the country for emerging film writers, technologists, and filmmakers. And I asked anyone going through the program, I said, just apply one of these principles. The book is a result of when you empathize with someone else and put yourself in their shoes. It helps you to develop compassion for that person. You want to help alleviate the suffering of another, or you want to help someone else overcome obstacles in their life.
Right.
And the way you do that, once you've developed that compassion, is by acts of kindness. Kindness is the action step.
Right.
So that's how those all fit together. The F, though, in forgiveness was the biggie, and it actually came later, even though we call it the first step. And that's was a result of several things. One, conversations that I had with Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. I met him when I was in South Africa, and when I came back to the States, I was so impressed with him that we nominated him for an Abraham Lincoln Leadership Prize. And when he came to the States to get the prize, we took him into the vault at the Abraham Lincoln Library in Springfield, where he was reading the handwritten letters from Abraham Lincoln. A. Lincoln, that's how he signed his name, not Abraham, A. Lincoln. And I was watching Archbishop Desmond Tutu handle these letters, and he was getting very emotional. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "The things that Lincoln went through remind me of the things that Nelson Mandela and I went through with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission." He said, "I lost friends because they did not want us to forgive people who had done egregious acts under the apartheid system. But I knew that if we did not forgive, if there wasn't a path to redemption, we all remained prisoners." That was so profound to me, because I used to think of forgiveness as you're being magnanimous and forgiving others, but it also takes the burden off of you.
And what do you think it takes to get there? Because it's one thing to say, I forgive, but
it's a process.
Yeah.
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 I'm saying it's a process. And I do have exercises in the book at the end of the chapter when I ask you to call in a person or a group that you want to forgive or that you think you have a beef with. And there are some steps to try to get to a point of forgiveness. But it can also happen in an instant if you're ready for it. I had a resentment that I was carrying around for a while, for too long. And one night I was so tired of it, I meditated, because I like to meditate. And then I got down on my knees and prayed. And I said, "Please take this away from me. This thirst for revenge or this anger is keeping me a victim."
Right.
And I didn't want it. I wanted to get rid of it. The next morning I got up. I felt light. The day seemed brighter. I was happier. And I could tell that old resentment was gone. It was so even though, it's, I say it can happen, it's a process, or it can happen in an instant. Sometimes we're just fortunate.
But it sounds like you got to the forgiveness or for the
No, it wasn't right.
It was
It was a process.
Yeah, it was a process. It was a long time coming, but you got to that moment that you remember of saying, "Okay, I'm ready for this now.
I'm ready to be done with this."
Yeah. And what's interesting is when you talk about forgiveness, I think a lot of people will think I forgive you.
Yeah.
Like we have to have a conversation about
Yeah.
it. But that's a great example. Yours is a great
right.
example because it's a forgiveness that you just had inside, that you just
Inside,
made a
yeah.
decision that you needed to release that, and forgiveness was your path to do that.
A good
I love
point,
that. I love that.
because let me tell you something else about that forgiveness and what we usually do. We carrying it around with us, the resentment. The person or persons that I forgave didn't even know.
Right.
They probably had forgotten about it.
Right.
They were living their best lives. They didn't care.
Right.
It was
Right.
me. I was the prisoner.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the F. The E is the empathy and
Yes.
Ebert. And the C
is the compassion
compassion. And how
that
does
you
that
feel
show
by
up?
putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And that's that's one of the things that I like about movies, because I love movies, of course. And I still run our company and still have film critics who write for us. And I also produce TV and movies as well. Compassion in cinema, to live someone else's life vicariously. There was a movie I saw, I think it was called Capernaum, about these little kids in the Middle East. And they lived a life that I wouldn't have known, but seeing it on movies made me curious about studying more things about that area, that life. And sometimes we see things in, even in our own country, someone of a different socioeconomic status, for instance, and we think, they're this, or whatever misconception we have about the otherizing someone. But once we put ourselves in their shoes, whether it's through cinema, whether it's through lived experience, volunteering for an organization, for instance, or whatever, you develop that compassion in your heart. And if that person or that group has obstacles, you think, maybe there's something I can do to help. That's where the compassion comes in. It's that feeling of wanting to help alleviate the suffering of another. And then the K, kindness, are the steps that you take to help alleviate their pain or suffering or the obstacles, whatever those are.
Do you have an idea of where you should start in this process? Which
Okay.
one of these FECKs?
Okay.
I have an idea, and I'll throw it out there.
I want to hear your
You
idea.
want to hear my idea? Okay.
I want to hear your idea.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you tell me if I'm
the thing
right.
that I do, the older I get, the more I know that I learn so much from people. I sincerely like to listen, and that's why I hope I don't unnerve you when people talk. I look at them because I'm taking in everything. I'm taking in what you're saying, but I'm taking in your movements and your gestures to see how comfortable you are with what you're saying, with what you're doing. If there's something that's going on,
Right.
If there's a
I
connection,
felt that right when you walked in.
Okay.
And we were waiting for people, and then we
Yes.
had a chance to talk, which was fantastic because we were able to make that connection, that Chicago connection, and Evanston and all that fun stuff. And I love that. I'm very similar with trying to find that space of comfort and connection, which brings us to now. As I was preparing for this, I was thinking, how would I implement that? And I haven't had a chance to read the entire book. I've read because we did this kind of quickly and prepped. And I was like, yes, she's in LA, bring her in. I'll read as much of it as I can. And one part of that was, I thought, wow, if everyone could just start with kindness, wouldn't we be in a different place? It almost, for me, it felt like, I feel like kindness is the beginning, because that just starts when you walk out the door with everyone that you encounter. And so
you're taking my example.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm on the right track.
I love that.
Okay. For me, that's what I was just thinking. I was like, wow, and all the conflicts that you have with people, or, misunderstandings, because that's usually what it is when you have conflict, is either you're not listening or it's a misunderstanding. But to just start off from a kind place.
And how about saying hello or good morning?
Yeah.
Or just, sometimes a smile, and not in situations where you feel you're going to put yourself in danger by doing it.
Right.
but in a situation where you feel safe, because sometimes we're looking at our devices, we're rushing past, we're not paying attention to the other people. And one of the things that I talk about, I think I talk about this a little in my book. My mother was a spiritualist minister, a minister in the spiritualist church, but she was also a psychic and intuitive. She didn't practice that commercially. It's just something, a gift that she was born with. But in her spiritualist church, it is something that they paid attention to. So my mother was the one who taught me that when you're with someone, be present with them. Sometimes just being present is a present.
Yeah.
Being present is a present, is a gift to the other person, because a lot of times we're not. People are talking, we're looking at our phone, we're thinking about what we're going to do next, we're making plans. And I find at the, we had I had a signing at Book Soup in LA last night, and one of my attorneys came to the book signing, and she was someone who became our attorney before Roger passed away. And her name is Anita. Roger said Anita was the best listener he ever met. When Anita listens to you, you have her full on attention. It was unnerving to us at first when we first met her, because we had never met anyone who listened like that. She is present. It's such a gift. She lets you know, I'm there with you. Nothing else is important right now.
So how does she do that? What is she doing what was it that she was doing that stood out to Roger so much that he was able to identify that and say that right away?
The odd thing is we first met her over the telephone. Oh. Not even in person.
Right. So how did
he could sense that. I don't know. Well, I do know. Part of it is we're talking, and sometimes when people are talking and you say, she may not always say that, but she's listening, and somehow you sense that she's listening, and then she'll wait, give you time to stop, and then she'll give it back to you. And what she tells you lets you know that she not only heard everything that you said, but she's also considering things and adding to it and making it even better.
Amazing.
And so she has this great communication ability.
Listening is the beginning of all communication, which also makes me think of, she's someone that maybe, I don't know how old she is, but maybe she's of a generation, sounds like she's been older, around, a little older. Do you think that times have changed over the years, that people are not as good as listeners because they're on their devices, or kindness has changed, compassion, all of these things that you are pointing to here? Have you seen over the years that people are doing less of it?
We know for sure that life and the internet and social media has shortened our attention spans. That's a given. And so the thing that I especially love talking to young people, because they're not used to having people pay that much attention to them, they love it when we start talking about these things. And I said, let's have a conversation. Let's put our phone down and just have a conversation. At first, it's a little awkward. They're like, what? I may need to respond. No, just for a few minutes. Let's just put our phones down and just talk. And they love it, the attention. And you can also start feeling it. You start feeling that something, the room, the temperature, the air, something changes in the room. And it made me think about, Roger was, there was an organization called the Conference on World Affairs in Boulder. And he went for years. It was co-founded by Eleanor Roosevelt and Buckminster Fuller and Professor Howard Higman at the University in Colorado. And Roger said that when you talked to Buckminster Fuller, when you said hello to him, we would say hello or good morning. He says, I see you. And I use that sometimes when I give speeches. And I started really thinking, what does that mean? And when you really do see someone, oh my God, it opens up the whole universe because I see a beauty. My mother used to tell me that, she said, everybody, there's something interesting about everybody.
Yeah.
Your job is to find out what it is. If you're interested, if you're curious. If you say, and when my children were growing up, if they would say, I'm bored, I say, no, you're boring. Because if you paid attention to things or to people, there are plenty of things to do. Right. There's so much to find out. This whole world has so much to offer.
Right.
So
that
you
is
have
good.
to be
That
curious.
is good mothering. So, I like that. From one mother to another, I'm going to use that.
All right.
So now you're in this journey of sharing all of this.
Yes.
What would Roger say about this?
I think that he was nudging me from the other side to do this book.
It sure sounds like it.
Because I can't tell you how many times I wanted to put the book down, to stop writing. And even after it was written almost, I said, there's no way I'm going to publish this. Who wants to read a book about, be kind, be good, be empathetic. And then I said, okay, I have to trust the universe on this, that this book will come out at the right time. And I think this is the time.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't have a crystal ball. My mother probably had a crystal ball. I don't. So I think it came out at the right time. And I love talking about it because there are so many things that I find out about other people and talking about it.
It sounds like your mother was a really big influence in your life.
To me, my mother was a goddess. She was a goddess. I don't know how I was that fortunate to have a mother like that. I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters. When my mother passed away, at her funeral, one of my brothers or someone was speaking and said, I was my mother's favorite child. And each of my brothers and sisters got up and said, no, I was mom's favorite. No, I was the favorite. It was funny. I mean, at the funeral, everybody started laughing because they could see we each actually thought that. We were serious.
Yeah.
What? No, because she made us all feel like we were her favorite. But I know I was really her favorite. But
let's just clear that up.
Clear that up. The thing about mother, she was the person that when she walked into a room, she brought the sunshine with her. She was so loving and so kind. And dad was more serious. He was more reserved. They both were from Georgia. My dad was the kind of man of that generation that he showed his love, not by saying, I love you, but by going to work every day and taking care of the family and making sure we had food on the table and a roof over our heads. And so I know why, because he was so reserved, I know why he loved our mother, who was so effusive with her love and hugs and kisses and inviting everybody in the neighborhood to get a cookie or a kiss or something. And yeah.
Did she push you professionally?
She was very proud of me. From the time I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And I think it was a next door neighbor who we used to watch, I don't know, maybe we watched Perry Mason together or something. I don't remember how it came about, but from 6 years old, I had in my head I wanted to be a lawyer. So I would go to school, and I was pretty good in school and pretty smart in school. And so my family, my mother, she did push me in the sense that she said, if you want to be a lawyer, this is what you do. You go to this, you do well in high school, then you go to college, and then you go to law school. And when I was in my first year in college, I discovered I was pregnant. And that could have derailed all of my plans.
Sure.
And I didn't know what to do. This was in the 1969, 1970. There was no legal abortions. There were things people called back alley abortions and so forth. And I was in the hospital, and the doctor said, does your family know you're pregnant? Mm-hmm. And I said, no. He said, well, at the time, he brought a phone to my bed in the hospital. Now you can have a cell phone or something, big phone. Called my family, and I told them, and I was crying. It was the hardest thing because I had been the good girl and the smart girl, and I knew I would have been the first one in my family of 9 kids to go to a 4-year college. I had 2 sisters who had gone to nursing, I think to be nursing assistants, and maybe a brother had gone to a community college, but I was the first one to go to a 4-year university. And I felt I was letting my family down. And I thought, how can I be a lawyer? My family rallied around me and they told me they loved me. My schoolmates at the university were so kind to me. Everybody, all of these angels, I just call them angels, angels on earth, angels cosmically, surrounded me with just love and compassion.
Yeah.
And the kindness, the things that they did. And even after my kids were born and, the students, we would get together to help each other so that, we probably did makeshift, what do you call those, preschools or something, to make sure that we could all still go to school while we moved out into the married students' dorm. Eventually I got married, moved out, had 2 children. And being a mother really is one of my most beloved things that I've done in life. I've done a lot, and being a mother is right up there with everything because it caused me to open my heart. And that's why the programs that I endow for young people or for emerging people is because of the kindness and compassion that was shown to me when at a point in my life when my life could have gone either way. I could have dropped out of school. I could have been humiliated, ashamed. Today, it's nothing. But back then, if you were pregnant out of wedlock, that was a big deal back then. And especially if you were African American, you would read all these statistics. And
so you had the baby as a freshman, sophomore in college.
Yes.
And then when did you have the second child?
The first one was born, I think, in 1970. Mm-hmm. The second one was born in 1971. And then I graduated from college. I went to law school. I moved back to Chicago to go to DePaul. So my kids would go with me too.
Little kids.
Yeah, they would go to law school with me sometimes.
Wow.
And first after college, I got a bachelor's degree. Then I got a master's degree at the University of Wisconsin. And then we moved back to Chicago and I got a law degree and practiced law for.
Did you ever during that time think, I can't do this, or this is too much? Was there ever a moment where you thought about not pursuing what you had set out to pursue?
No, the only time that I thought about not pursuing it is when I was in the hospital and I had to call my parents and I was thinking I had let everyone down and I was feeling so down on myself. I was beating myself up. I was feeling like I brought shame to the family. Right. That's the only time that I felt my life's over. I can't do it. And when all these people surrounded me, it makes me want to cry now, even talking about it. Oh my God. This book, why did I write this book? Because I have felt so privileged to be surrounded by so many angels. And I know everybody doesn't have that in their lives. And everyone deserves to have it. So no matter how you grow up, no matter what you want to be, no matter whether you have money or no money, no matter whether you have love or no love, there are people who want to help you, and we have to find the people to help. We have to say, what is it that we can do to make the world better? What is it that we can do to alleviate the suffering of someone else? That's why I wrote the book. And you're making me cry.
Oh, well, it is
and
beautiful.
I know that's not what 10 Minutes to Air is about.
No, well, you know what? It really is. It's really digging into what is inside of us that makes us do the things that we do, because everyone has that story. And if we don't share those stories, we never have the opportunity to find compassion, kindness, all of these things. So I thank you for being so vulnerable and honest. And I think it's really interesting. And I'm just going to point out at the beginning, when I asked you why you wrote the book, you go, I don't really know why I wrote the book. So we got to it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So amazing. And what a beautiful story. And your mother is is watching you and saying, "Good job, Chaz, good job." Well, thank you for writing the book. I have to say that. I don't think a lot of people realize what a powerhouse you are. I know for me as a reporter in Chicago, I had the opportunity of interviewing your
Roger.
your
Well, he
late
was
husband.
he was such a powerhouse. He just,
He was such a powerhouse, but that was obvious. He was out there in the public. Little did we know you were this powerhouse behind the scenes and a trial attorney and running a business. So it's no surprise that you are now out here doing all this. What keeps you going?
I asked Roger when he was very sick. He had lost his ability to speak. And he had been in the hospital almost a year. He got out of the hospital and I said, what would you like? What is it that makes you want to get up the next day? He said, I want to see what's going to be in the news. I have a curiosity about what's going to happen the next day. And I think the curiosity about life keeps me going. The curiosity about really what keeps me going now is how can we make these principles go viral?
Yeah.
During the pandemic, the coronavirus was an actual virus that went viral and shut down the whole world. Little islands, Fiji, little islands in the South Pacific, the whole world shut down because of a virus. Why can't the whole world light up because of something like compassion and kindness? I want to find the secret to making these principles go viral.
Yeah.
That's what makes me get up in the morning and say, who am I going to meet that's going to help me unlock the secret to making compassion go viral?
I love that. And why not?
Yeah.
Why? Like what will come of that?
Yes.
But goodness.
Yes.
Wow. Chaz, anything I didn't ask you that you want to mention? This is such a beautiful conversation. I feel honored that you stopped by and long overdue for me because I've actually watched and known you for years and how lucky for me that you're coming through LA and able to stop in and chat.
I am so happy that you talked to me about this today because now I know why I wrote the book.
I love that. I'm glad I could help. That's what we do around here. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Chaz Ebert, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will have all the information about your book in the show notes, and I am going to do what I can to push this viral message. Let's make it happen.
And we miss you in Chicago, and I'm going to tell people that I got to talk to you here. So
lucky me.